this gave us the capability of flying the tree panels, flying birds, flying giant feet, standing and lying down. What else did we fly? I think that's it. Anyway, the Moonlight production is an outdoor amphitheater. They don't have any kind of a fly system at all. So the tree panels that we flew, they used basically as a backdrop on their set. The birds and things sort of came in on a batten from the sides of their portals. So our production was much more technically difficult than the Moonlight production.
What difficulties did you face in directing this show?
Well, the difficulties are, of course, that it's an extremely difficult piece. I mean, there's no question about it musically and everything about it, but we knew from the very beginning that it was going to be a challenge and that we were not going to bite off more than we could chew, that we bit it off and we chewed it. So we knew from the beginning how difficult it was.
The props for the show weren't all that difficult because we got quite a few of them from the Moonlight production. We had to go out and hunt down more birds, had to make a dress for the giants, and fun stuff. But it was a real fun prop show, and our crew was just wonderful.
It was a lot more difficult than most shows that we've done. There was a lot more things being flown in, and it made for very hectic scene changes. So it was very difficult, but I think we did a very good job.
With all these changes, occurring all the time that, we never could get it right, but the last one was terrific.
I think that the crew people had a hard time, and the stage manager, Sarah, because there were so many lighting cues and the panels, and I just think that it was an excellent show, if I do say so myself, and that I think we should be very proud of what we've done.
And my hands are like all blistered and stuff from pulling ropes and stuff.
For me personally, it was one of the more busy shows because of how many of the sets were coming in and out with the new fly system, and working with the new fly system, getting everything to go where you want it to go is pretty busy sometimes, especially in the show.
The Woods.
It was a really hard technical show. There were 8 wireless mics, and I was doing the things for the wireless mics. And a lot of times the actors would be up on stage whispering. So we'd have the mics all the way up, and they still wouldn't pick them up. So it was really hard.
Comparing to the other shows that I've done, Into the Woods was a lot more difficult. There were a lot more, many more mic changes, and it just was a long show, and it was hard.
I'd have to say the most difficult was Into the Woods, and I worked on soundboard for that. And we worked with 8 wireless mics, the floor mics, trying to catch everybody, Rapunzel's voice, and I'd say the hardest was cueing the giant's voice, trying to get it on cue with the lines.
Mainly the cues that me and Sarah were calling, mainly Sarah, were pretty difficult because we had to work lights and sound and most of the panels that kept on going up and down, the giant's feet.
Well, for me, Into the Woods, the difficulty was mostly in the songs and the transformation, because it was hard to figure out a way to do the transformation in a way that the audience would not be able to tell so much that it wasn't really me, the double and everything.
Secret is out. There was a double for the witch, but nobody's supposed to know.
I would say it was probably very difficult because the costume part of Into the Woods was very elaborate, and we had a lot of costume changes and a lot of problems that went in the show, but it was an overall fun experience. I think one of the biggest problems was that it was hard enough memorizing the dialogue, but the music itself was just extremely difficult. Not to mention we had a million props we had to deal with, and then there were all sorts of technical problems, costume problems, so there were a million problems, so it was just extremely, extremely difficult.
How would you judge the difficulty of the music for Into the Woods?
Well, it was really difficult, but it was fun and it was success.
Yeah, it was hard, and at first I didn't like it, but after a while it got better.
Actually, the music itself wasn't too difficult. It was just counting on staying on track with the rest of the orchestra, because there were a lot of tempo changes and time signature changes and stuff like that.
The music, it had no melody line whatsoever, so you had to depict it for yourself.
I remember one, I think it was a matinee, or maybe it was an evening, I don't know. But I started singing the little bugs and dugs and stuff, and up until the last night of the show, I was always at least a beat off on that part or more. And Mr. Christensen couldn't say the words out loud because he wasn't supposed to. And he goes, and he starts giving these huge cues, and I never got it till the last night. It was horrible. But the last night I did get it, so it's like...
Every so often the actors would miss their cues, and getting back on track with them was somewhat difficult.
The music itself wasn't that hard, but there was just a lot of tempo changes, and you had to keep a look at Mr. Christensen to know exactly where you were.
Yeah, the music wasn't as difficult, but it was the matter of having to pay attention to the conductor and having to play all the time and without resting a lot.
And the music was pretty difficult, and the different key changes in the song and the songs that I sung were difficult to learn at first. But, you know, after each show I'd get used to it, and so after a while it wasn't that hard.
Cow was probably the easiest thing, except it gave us a hard time most of the time because it had to be controlled by remote control, and it kept on discharging most of the time, and it didn't work too well during the show.
And the cow going because it rattled all the time we were on stage because we couldn't turn it off.
How difficult was Into the Woods for you as an actor?
It was very difficult. We had no idea what the character was supposed to be. The play did not describe what the person was supposed to act like, all except that he was supposed to appear and disappear.
The other difficult thing, I think, was like the dying scene. It was so hard to keep a straight face when everybody was like out there yelling and laughing and stuff, and I didn't want to, you know, mess it up and do it too many times, but we did make it funny.
And the difficulties are just, one of them is you're majorly tired all the time during a show.
The other thing, was freezing. Freezing. For 5 minutes while the witch comes out and sings greens, and having to just hold where you were and not twitch, and having your legs start burning and you know.
There was a larger crew than cast. It was very unusual to see more people in black. It was like a funeral, but it was fun.
Overall, I think the show was probably one of the best shows we've done, technically wise.
And I just think that it was an excellent show, if I do say so myself, and that I think we should be very proud of what we've done.
It was fun.
The James Lapine Stephen Sondheim musical, Into the Woods, is probably one of the more challenging shows ever written. And it's definitely one of the most difficult shows that we've ever attempted here. But despite some minor technical difficulties, I think we did a great job with it.